Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I'm super excited about our guest today, Hazel Walker. Some of you don't know, I'm a member of BNI. I have been for like a really long time, and Hazel and I met a really long time ago, and we reconnected this year and realized we had like so much in common. It was kind of crazy. So I said, hey, come on the podcast. Hazel is the owner of 5 BNI franchises, 4 in British Columbia and 1 here in Indiana. So I'm going to read her bio and bring her on. Hazel Walker started her journey as a business owner when she found herself becoming the owner of an insurance agency in 1990. She joined BNI in 1991 to collaborate with other local business owners to grow one another's business. BNI became a franchise in 1998, and she brought the Central Indiana BNI franchise and sold her agency in 2001. Hazel currently owns 5 franchises in 2 countries, the USA and Canada, with 1,300 members, and she chairs the Global Ethic Advisory Board supporting BNI franchises around the world. At the end of 2022, she ranked 166 out of 3,000 franchises worldwide and number 6 of 360 in the USA. Hazel has a global reach with her network. She served as the National Franchise Development Director and National Training Director for BNI Australia, and has been on stage as a keynote speaker in more than 27 countries with audiences of 4,000 attendees. That is just like freaking awesome. She is published in more than a dozen books and is the author of the book, Business Networking and Sex, Not What You Think. Okay, I did not read her bio, so I did not see that one coming. Okay, where she plays the role of, she says, based on a survey of 12,000 men and women, this was a groundbreaking book and hit New York Times and Amazon's bestsellers list for nonfiction. Hazel has been the only director awarded the Hall of Fame award for being the #1 franchise in the world 13 months in a row, a feat that has never been repeated. In 2022, she was on the cover of the Boss Lady magazine in Indiana, and she is a badass, I will tell you that. She's a business owner, global speaker, coach, and trainer, a mother of 3, a grandmother of 10, and a great-grandmother of 3. She lives her life by this slogan: life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside with a martini in one hand and chocolate in the other, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, woo, what a ride. So without further ado, let's meet Hazel. I love that. Hi.
Hi, I love that too. It's just so perfect about how I live my life.
And you can just picture it, right? Like I can see you going, woo, let's end this. I said, we went to Disney World for our 20th anniversary, and Heather wanted to go on Tron, and I wanted to go on Tron, but because of this COVID medical thing that I have, I can't because it's like G-force. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? When I find out I have like a month to live or something, that's how I'm going out. I'm going to get on the Tron ride and just,
blast off.
Just go. So, I've known you for years, and it's crazy how this year we kind of reconnected and realized all the things that we had in common, which was pretty awesome. But let's talk about your journey. I mean, it's so incredible what you've done and what you've built. And so tell us about Hazel.
Well, I told this last time I told this story was on a stage in Poland in 2019, just before we got locked down for COVID, to a crowd of about 4,400 people, I think it was, and had them all crying. So my manager goes, I have never seen a full room of men with tears in their eyes like that. But my story really it doesn't start out as a plan. I remember saying to someone one time, I could have never dreamed the life that I live because I didn't have the capacity to dream this. Like, it never occurred to me that I could travel around the world. I lived in all over the southern part of the United States and grew up in Avon, moved there when I was in high school. But we lived in poverty. I mean, we were very poor, and I was the oldest of 7, and my primary job was to take care of my siblings while my parents worked, and to protect my siblings while my parents fought. Right. So that was my role as a child growing up. So I was always in charge, right? Oh, because I was the oldest. I was always in charge of everything.
Right.
And that's just the way my life has gone, is I'm always in charge. And my husband, I got married. My husband fell down he owned an insurance agency. Right? Second marriage. We had a child together. He started an insurance agency, and he got mad at one of the insurance companies. He canceled our health insurance because he was really angry. And then just a few days later, he fell down a flight of stairs and had a massive brain hemorrhage.
Oh, my God.
And my 4-year-old found him, and we didn't have cell phones then, right? So I'm at a Girl Scout dinner with my daughters, because that's what I had spent my life doing at that point. I was volunteering, raising kids, PTA, Girl Scouts, all of that. Mm-hmm. And the 4-year-old had to call Rescue 911. And he called 911 because he watched that show with his dad all the time, Rescue 911. And he knew how to call the help. He knew how to check his father's breath by putting his hand under his nose. He rescued his dad. When I came home, I couldn't find anybody. Cars in the driveway. No one's home. I don't even know what to do. Finally, a neighbor calls me and says, "You need to go to the hospital. There was an accident." I immediately think it was my son, but no, it was the grown-up. Oh. It was the grown-up child. But he had he fell down those stairs and hit the floor and had a massive brain hemorrhage. So he couldn't work for almost 2 years.
Wow.
It took that long for him to rehabilitate. So that left me in charge of an insurance agency. And I had no idea how to run a business. I wasn't licensed to sell insurance. I knew nothing. I was a volunteer, right? So I had a lot to learn really, really fast. Like, I had to get licensed. I had to learn how to work staff. I just had so much to do. I was overwhelmed. And we didn't have health insurance. And this was our sole income.
Wow.
So I was very clear that either I figured this out and learned how to do it, or lose everything.
Right.
Right. Because that was my only option. So I did. I read every book. I did everything I could do. I took all of the Girl Scout cookie skills that I had learned and all of the volunteer skills of running these big organizations, and I put them to use and ran the agency. And then I heard that there was some networking groups around town. Now, I was a consummate networker. That's how I got the name Queen of Networking, because everybody knew me, but I was still broke. Networking doesn't make you money.
No.
Working your network will make you money, but networking doesn't make you money. So I was very, very popular, but very, very broke. And then someone told me about these 4 or 5 little groups that were around and that I should check them out. But as you know, even back then, insurance agents are a dime a dozen when it comes to getting into these groups.
Yep.
It's a waiting list. So I couldn't get in one. I had to launch my own. So I started my own chapter, and then that was 1991.
Wow.
In 1998, it came up for sale. I bought the franchise. I just bought it out, continued to run the agency. You know, my husband was recovering at that point. He had taken a job as a vice president of an insurance company. And he looked at me and he goes, You're going to buy that? Do you think you can make money at that? I go, I don't know if I can make money at that, but I certainly network my insurance agency all over the place.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Right? Yep. So that was my plan there, was I was going to network the insurance agency. And so I went from there to here. So it's just became a big international thing. Like, I have traveled to 33 countries.
Wow.
and either done training or keynote speaking. I lived in Australia for 6 years doing their franchise development and their national trainer. And never, ever would you have ever told the little high school girl from Avon, Indiana,
Yeah.
that she would write a book, stand on stage, travel the world. Like, it wasn't in my ability to have. My number one dream was that when I grow up, I'm not having any children because I raised my 6 brothers and sisters, so no children. I've done
Right.
that. And I'm gonna get a new home in the suburb with a dishwasher.
There you go.
That was it. That was
And
the
you
dream.
and you got that. Well,
And I
except
got
now
it
you have kids and grandkids and great grandkids. So, so much
Yeah,
for that idea.
that's
But
part of the dream. Yeah, I learned really quick. Don't tell God what you're not going to do.
yes, exactly right. Well, and it's so interesting because so I was at a conference in Denver this week, and there were like people who one woman was from Alberta and she was in BNI, and we're like, oh, we can count this as a 1-to-1, but we couldn't find each other. So we were like, damn it. But
That's because the app quit was not working.
I know. So I was like, we're getting
I
screwed. I told them that. I said, we're getting screwed out of our 1-to-1s this week. But the coolest thing that I love about this organization, and, we won't talk about whatever, but what I love about it is that there's always somebody that you meet who's in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are. So like I went up to Chicago. I belong to a group called the Dames, and we're women, 6 figures plus, international, right? And a lot of the women are in BNI, which is like awesome. So when I went up to Chicago, Francesca Vanderwall, who is the president of the Chicago chapter, we're talking. She's like, yeah, I have a BNI meeting, tomorrow morning. And I'm like, oh, shut up. This can count as a 1-to-1. So, and she and I shared a room last week. So I said, that should be like 80 1-to-1s because we've been together for like 80 hours. And I know it doesn't work like that, but my point, my point is that you just never know where you're going to meet somebody who's like in a BNI. And it's, people are like, oh, BNI, it's like a cult. You drink the, Kool-Aid. But I think at the end of the day, what people don't like is the accountability.
Oh yeah, they don't like that.
They hate it. They hate the rules, that there are rules. But when you go to a meeting, you need that shit in place.
Well, they actually do like the accountability. They like it.
Some.
They just don't want it used on them.
Well, yes, exactly.
I want all of you to be accountable so I can make money and we can get this done. But not you didn't mean me.
Right. You don't want me to be accountable. I have to show up every week and do stuff. But what I find really interesting though is I remember, because I've been in it like for years, but so we launched a new chapter, as almost a year, which I can't believe it's like almost a year already. I think it's like the best chapter that I've ever been in. But the really cool thing about it is it's not just about business. You're building relationships, you're building friendships. We go out with each other and we, hang out. And what I love about the meetings is the structure. Because if you don't have the structure in that meeting, it's a shit show. I mean, you have to, right? Otherwise,
a coffee chat.
Yeah.
Right? Just having coffee or having beer, and you're going to do business with each other someday.
Yeah.
But there's no system for you to do that, and it never really happens.
Right.
So the system is what makes it work. And people tell me all the time people join for the referrals. But when I interview them again and I go, so why do you keep staying
right
in this group? And they'll say, oh, for the relationships. It's like family.
100%.
So they want the money here, but over here, they want the relationships end up being far more important to them than just the money.
Right. So people who run relationship-based businesses. So it's funny because the conference that I was just at, and I was just talking, where the hell was I? Oh, at AWBO. But for me, I need a relationship with my clients, because if I don't have a relationship with them and I don't know them, I don't know how I can help them.
Right.
Right. So if I don't have a relationship with a fellow member in BNI or any networking group, I don't know how to help them because I don't know enough about them. And if I'm going to refer them, damn right, I need to have a relationship with you, because if I don't know, like, and trust you, I'm not referring you.
And it's your reputation on the line.
100%. So I will tell
you.
you a story. I'm not going to mention names just because, but I was in a group, and this was years ago, and I knew this guy, and I was like, he's going to do amazing things, right? So he ran a pretty good sized company, and my wife works for a steel mill, and they needed lines painted and cleaning and all that other crap. And I never even told you this. So I refer him, and his workers show up with the company that she works with. You have to watch a safety video, and then you have to do the safety protocol. So if you're taking a job on, you kind of need to do what they need you to do in order to keep you safe. That's in place for a reason, right? This guy, his workers wouldn't wear the safety stuff, and he would show up late. And this is a guy that I'm referring. So I was like, oh my God. So, of course, for a few years, they were like, yeah, Iris gives great referrals. And I was like, oh my God. And it was the first person that I ever referred for something that big. And I said something to him. I was like, and the thing that killed me about it, he could have had a multi-million-dollar contract with this company because they're all over the United States, and he blew it. And what it taught me was, and I was in the chapter with him, and I knew him, and I thought I trusted him. But after this, it was like, sadly, I would never refer him again. So that's a good and a bad thing, right? So the bad thing is that I was teased for a really long time, and this company kind of got, screwed out of what they did. It also taught me that I would never refer him again. And why I bring that up is because there's good and bad in everything. The chapter that I'm in now, without a doubt, I know them well, and I will refer them all day long.
Right. And
I do.
One of the things I teach is there's anytime you're in a room, there are two kinds of people in the room. There are the trust fast and the trust slows. And the trust fast is, I will trust you until what? I don't know.
Right.
Until something happens that I can't trust you anymore. And even then I'll probably give you a second chance depending on what happens. But then there's this other group that is a trust slow. Mm-hmm. I will not trust you until. And you have to figure that out. And the trust fast people quite often trust a little too fast. And then we have to back up a little bit, because I've done that. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt very quickly.
Right.
Until something happens that I can't, right?
Yes.
I have to take it back. And that has happened to me. I had a very similar incident to you when I gave a referral to a person I should have spent more time building the relationship with. And I should have actually spent more time building the relationship I referred him to.
Right.
Because the guy I referred him to turned out to be someone really hard to work for. And this guy, so conflict started. Here's what I learned. I should have stayed involved in the referral longer.
Right.
I should have been checking in. I should have stayed involved in it to see it through so I could.
Girl, I was like texting going, dude, what are you doing?
Yep.
Because my wife, this is my wife's, where she works. So she's texting me like, by the way, and I'm texting him like, dude, what the hell?
The next time I saw the guy I gave the referral to, we're at a big mixer, and I was running for school board, and we're at a big mixer, and someone said they needed something. And I said, well, I could probably introduce you to someone. And that guy said, if she's going to introduce you to one of those members from that thing she's in, just say no. So it not only hurt my credibility,
wow,
it hurt the credibility of the business. And I think sometimes we don't think about the impact that we have that goes beyond ourselves.
Oh,
You
100%.
have a great network. You have to protect your network,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because one little thing can now affect me with everything. And it took a long time to fix that relationship.
Yeah.
But it was,
Well, she told me no more referrals.
yeah,
She's like, no more. Because like, seriously, for 3 years, they have like safety dinners every year. And I would go to the safety dinner and they were like, hey, anybody need a good referral? Ask Iris. And I was
I
just
know.
like,
See, that's
oh my
exactly what
God,
was
like,
happening
are
to
you
me.
kidding me? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly
But
it.
it's like, yeah, I am working on one because I think that could be good, but that's another story.
But you
So,
trust and
because
understand.
now this person don't, ooh, that was weird. Woo. What people don't realize when we have referral partners, right, is the knowing, the liking, the trusting. I had somebody say, well, you don't necessarily need to know, like, and trust somebody. It's like, yeah, you kind of do.
You absolutely do.
Because that's what happened. I thought I knew him. I thought I trusted him. I liked him. I mean, after that, I was like, well, you're an asset. Not that I don't like him, but again, I would never refer anything to him. But I think that, for me, it's like people refer me. They look at my website, they see exactly who I am. There's no, you look at that and it's like, okay, this is, I mean, I've gotten so much business from my website because people refer me and then they go to my website and they're like, oh, okay. And then they meet me and they're like, oh, you're exactly, well, yeah, that's why my website is, is what it is, because that's who I am.
I think the reason people think, and if you read my book, Business Networking and Sex, I wrote that, co-authored that with Frank, and then we invited Ivan in to do the survey. But one of the things I learned, and Frank and I got into a heated discussion about, is how we build relationships. Women build relationships very differently than men.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned from him is they tend to build the relationship after the sale. They don't need the relationship to do the sale. They'll build the relationship after the sale because then you're in business with them and they'll build a relationship. While we build the relationship before we do business, right? We build the relationship up front. They build the relationship later. And
wow.
so, and guys have a tendency to like to do the, hey, just use my name. Just tell them I said give you a call. And that's really a lead. That's not a referral. A referral requires that all three people are engaged in the whole process the whole time. And the confusion becomes oh, I don't really need to know you, like you, and trust you to give you a lead. I don't need to trust you. I don't need to know anything about you to give you a lead because my reputation's not at risk.
Right.
Right. And that's
I know a guy, someone told me about this guy. Here you go.
Yeah. See, you don't.
If I'm sitting down and having lunch with you and introducing you to somebody, that's a different referral.
Right? That's a different ballgame. Yeah. And I don't need a whole lot of trust to refer the florist. If the florist sends my mother flowers and the flowers die 3 days later, my mother still loves me. I'm a hero. I sent her flowers. Right? But if I take my mother's money and I give it to the financial guy and he invests the money and loses all the money, my mother's not going to love me because we're going to have to live together and you can't put two queens in a room.
That almost made me spit my water out.
Well, we're both being charged the whole time, and now we're fine. That would be bad.
Yes.
Right? We don't cross that border. So the trust level for every different profession is different too.
Yeah, and I think that, well, yeah, because there are things that are going to have more impact on you, right? So, with me with marketing, I had a client, and this was like, this totally changed the trajectory of the way that I look at what I do. So it was during the pandemic, and I always give my local clients, I bring them presents during Christmas. And so I went to one of my clients and I brought him, a present, and he goes, hang on, I have something for you. I was like, oh, okay. You didn't need to do anything. And he comes out with this like big ass basket. And I went, that is so beautiful. You didn't, but you really didn't need to do that. And he goes, I want you to know that what you do isn't lost on me. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you help me put food on my guys' tables. And I said, what? He goes, if what you did didn't work, I probably wouldn't be open and they wouldn't have jobs. And it was just like, oh my God. And of course I start crying, right? Because I was like, oh my God, I never looked at it like that. But what that did was, I think for the first month, it freaked me out a little because I felt like I had all this responsibility, which you do anyway.
No.
But it kind of made me look at things a lot differently. That I'm not just selling a website. I'm not just doing these things. This really freaking matters. And it added a level of importance of what I do, right? So I don't work with anybody that I don't know, because if I don't know them, I don't know that I can help them. So that's just changed everything. And it's changed my model of business, because before I used to be like, oh, you need a website? Sure, I'll help you with a website. Now it's like, because your website is your online storefront, and your website is the insight to who you are as a business person at the end of the day, what your business is about, what's your mission, what's your, all of that. And if it's not, it should be, right?
Well, wait, that's exactly, because I have learned, I have had people call me and say, I didn't have the money for Christmas presents last year for my family, but because of the training you've given me and the work that we've done, it's made a huge difference to my family. And I've had, during COVID, my business would have folded in COVID had it not been for my BNI chapter who supported me through it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I get those stories all the time, and I realize that what I do is important. Like, it changes people's lives and it makes a difference in people's lives. And we have people in BNI Indiana now generationally, like it's been passed on to the next generation.
Yep.
So it's important when you realize that what you do makes a difference for people. Right. It changes how you look at your business.
Like 100%. And I think the funny thing was, and like I said, my thing was, I help people grow their business. And I do, and I did, but when he said that, it just put a whole different layer on it that I'd never thought about. But like I said, the first month I was like, oh my God, if I don't do this right, that guy's not going to eat. Right. So it's like, holy crap. So I had all this pressure, and then I went, okay, instead of looking at it like that, you're doing what you're doing. You're not changing anything. What you're doing works. So stop freaking out and just, do it. But having that extra level of not just responsibility, but of knowledge, right? It just changed everything. So now, people are like, well, how do you know you can't work with me? I don't know you. I don't know if I can help you. I need to get to know you. I need to get to know your business. Once I get to know your business, then I know if I can help you. But if I don't do any of that, I don't know that I can. And I'm not taking your money if I can't.
And I might not be the right person. And there's times I have to say that to people about BNI. This is not the right organization for you.
Right.
I had a guy call me recently, and he wanted to get into a chapter. His nephew told him he needed to get in, but he didn't understand what email and internet was. Like, he couldn't figure him out. And he just got his very first smartphone that his grandson gave him. And I was trying to help him, and I realized he won't survive in a chapter. I could take his money, but he won't survive because he can't do the app and the learning and all of the things that BNI has evolved to, getting on Zoom and all of that stuff.
Right.
And I had to say, this is not the right place for you. Here's a couple other places that might be a better time for you to spend. And he was younger than me. Like, he was young, because I stopped and I go, how old are you? And he was 5 years younger than me. And I was like, he goes, but I never needed the internet. And I go, but now you do. And this is why you keep up with what's going on.
Right. And there was a guy, oh gosh, he was like in his 40s. He's like, I don't need a smartphone. What? Yeah, you do. Like, dude, you're 40 something. Of course you need one. Yeah. People, I have a computer. They can email me. But what about your phone? I mean, what if you're not home? You're going to miss business. Doesn't matter.
You didn't even have a flip phone.
Didn't you? No. So my father-in-law has a flip phone. He will not get like a regular smartphone. Like he just refuses. Yeah. It's like so funny.
My grandmother has her fifth. I bought her fifth flip phone because there are flip phone thieves in the nursing home, and hers keep disappearing and getting stolen. God. That's what she says. She tells me the story about all the thieves that come in and steal all of her phones. I think they end up in the laundry, actually. I think that's what happens. That's
too funny. So, of course, this is for entrepreneurs. And so we know what made you become an entrepreneur. So we kind of have that.
What made me become actually, I used to work for a temporary firm and I would bounce around because I learned at an early age, I am I'm a bad employee. I'm not cut out to be an employee. I don't like people telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. I do what I want to do. I find different ways to do things. I tend to be innovative and change things. And a lot of companies wasn't happy about that, especially the bank. And I had, I remember this. I worked for Merchants National Bank, and they're not around anymore.
No, they're not.
And I worked for Merchants National Bank, and I went in and asked, 2 people got let go in my department, and I took on their work. And I was still getting done early. And so I went to my boss, and I said to her, you've gotten rid of 2 people. You've saved this much money. I think since I've taken on their roles, I would like to see a rating, an increase in my pay. And she goes, well, you're not going to get that. And she goes, and I was a single mom at this point with my 2 daughters. And she said, and you are a single mom with 2 children, and you will get used to doing a lot of things you don't like to do.
Are you serious?
I'm serious as a heart attack. And so I remember going home and went, I can't let someone control me like that. And I went home. I took all the time I needed to figure out what I needed to do. And I wrote her a letter and gave her a 6-week notice saying I'm walking out. Well, what I didn't know, it was a 4-week notice. What I didn't know was the moment you give a bank a notice, they walk you out the door. They just give you the money and walk you out the door. So I walked out the door with a month's worth of pay and found another job with an entrepreneur who was starting his first business and worked for him for a while, and then got married and had a 3rd child and stayed home and stuff. But yeah, I just remember thinking no one can control me like that. No one.
Yeah.
It just is not okay. And that's when I learned I had to be in control of my own. And being at home, I was in control of everything.
Well, there you go. Right. And it's funny because, as entrepreneurs, we laugh, and everybody that I know are like, we are unemployable. Like we could never work for anybody again, so.
I was such a bad employee. That was it. That was the trigger that made me realize I just can't.
Can't do it.
I can't do it.
What advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
So I heard a quote yesterday. I think I have it written down somewhere, but it said, you have to overcome fear, right? You can't be afraid because you are always going to be in a state of fear if you become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You've got to work and make money. But I read this quote and it said, you will be able to overcome fear the moment you stop believing its promise that it's for your safety and well-being, when actually it's about you becoming its prisoner.
Wow.
And that just rang true with me yesterday. It's like, yeah, that's the way fear talks to you. Like, oh, you don't want to be an entrepreneur. Do you know what will happen? You're going to have to feed the family and you're going to go into debt. And it's like, it just gives you all of that, right? It's that monkey mind. It's talking to you. And if you if you easily give into that, this is not the life. This is because I have been doing this for 31 years and I still have on occasion the fear of doing something different or something new and I have to think about it. Now I have to think about how's it going to impact my employees? How's it going to impact my members? How's it going to impact my family? Mm-hmm. Right? I've got to look at a whole lot more people now. So you can't you can't believe fear's promise.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I love that question because, everybody answers it so differently. Some people answer it the same, but I love that. I love that because fear can really paralyze us and not let us move forward, right? And keep us stuck.
Fear
for me,
it can launch you if you allow it.
Well, that's what I mean. Yes, it can do both, right? But if you become its prisoner, then it paralyzes you. But yeah, it could be a trajectory for a lot of people. Like, oh shit, I need to, to do something now, which is what happened to me. I was like, do I collect unemployment? I lost my job. So what am I going to do? My wife makes great money, but she's going to make me do something. I'm not going to be able to sit home. So I started a business.
Don't think for a moment. Every day I went into that insurance agency and realized every class I had to take and everything I had to do and every proposal I did, I was in a total anxiety all the time. Am I going to lose the house? Are we going to lose?
Yeah.
But you just feel it, acknowledge it, and move through it. Don't let it paralyze you because it's a false promise.
Yeah. And I say you have to go through it to grow through it.
Yep.
Right. Because if you don't go through it, you're not going to grow. So, and I, the other thing or the other, piece of that is entrepreneurship is scary as hell. I mean, it is. And there are days that I don't have them as much anymore. I still get them once in a while, but man, I remember when I first started, I was like, oh, am I going to have to go and get a job? Like, am I going to be able to do this? Working like 100 hours a week to do the things. And now, thank God it's different. But, I remember even like 5 years ago, just going, man, how am I going to, my pipeline, it's not full right now. How do I fill it up and freaking out? And now it's like my pipeline is full, and I go, okay, when is this going to close? I don't worry about it anymore. It's like, because I know it's going to close. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the more I fill my pipeline, the more, things happen. But it's always, go ahead.
Well, I just think as women, one of the things that we have to be better at doing that men are really good at is we don't ask for help. Like we just keep going and going, and we don't stop and ask for help, and we don't look at. It took me forever to start bringing staff on because I thought, oh, it's just easier for me to do it myself. I just didn't think I could delegate it, and I should be doing all the work all the time, right? And that is a very, very much a mindset that we get into when we get into the entrepreneurial position of I can't give it away, but I can't do it all either.
Right.
And so I teach a lot of people the art of delegating and bringing on your first staff member and trusting how to start that trust, because every time you bring someone else on and every time you're teaching them something, you're escalating them up into the world.
Sure.
Right. And you're putting money back out into the universe so that they can spend money and help more people.
Right.
So it's a way of giving of your time and talent and money when you bring someone on to help you. And you have to change that mindset of, oh my God, now I gotta pay them.
Well, and that's one of the things that we talked about at the conference this week was asking for help. I mean, you had like 100 plus high energy, badass women in one room, right? And ask for help.
We have to humble ourselves and ask for help.
I didn't think of that. I have a fractional CMO now. And then they were laughing because they're like, well, you do marketing. And I'm like, I do, but I'm too close to me to be able to market myself.
Yeah.
And I recognize that finally, right? It was like, oh, duh. So we're working on a lead magnet and like all these other things. But, all the things that I do for my clients, I'm getting done for me now. And so it makes like such a big difference. It's like, oh, why the hell didn't I see this? But we don't, because you're right. We're so much in it that it's hard to get out of it.
I had a coach. It was probably the very first coach I ever had. And he was just giving me because I met him in the BNI chapter, and he was just giving me free coaching kind of stuff. And he asked me, he helped me understand what the value of my hour was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, "Why are you cleaning the house?" I go, "Because I got 3 kids. I got to clean the house." And he goes, "That's an $8 an hour job. And we just realized that you are $125 an hour value. So why are you doing an $8 an hour job when that would free up time for you to do what you need to do, like spend time with your family or spend time in your business?"
Right.
And that was a really, really, really hard concept for me to embrace and give up that role of mom doing everything, right? And being willing to pay people to do those things. Because I just thought I would be looked down on, I would be less than.
Because you're a bad mom, because you're not doing those things. Wow.
Doing those things.
Wow. Man, see, that's how society conditioned us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So, what is it like an obstacle that you've gone through or that you may still be going through that a seasoned entrepreneur might be dealing with right now?
You actually go through many different obstacles. There's the early entrepreneur that goes through all the obstacles like me with how do I find enough time? How do I balance my time in my business and still with my family? Because I still have a young family, right? So that meant late night hours after they went to bed. Then I would go in and do the other things and do that. But then as time went along and I started hiring more people, then I had to learn the obstacles of how do I bring on the right people to help me build my business and to help me do the things I need to do. And then as that went along, I had to learn to build the trust with people. Now I'm 67 years old. It's different obstacles. Like what am I going to do with myself now? Well, I've got a team that runs everything. If I disappear, it's fine.
Right.
I took off to Europe for 6 weeks. I didn't work for 6 weeks, but the business still grew. And it prospered and it grew while I was gone. So it's the obstacles are a little bit different now. How do I stay relevant? How do I do new things? Like I'm working on a book. How do I spend more time doing that and motivate myself to do that? So all through your life and the life of your business, you go through new obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to take a step back, get with the people that are in your network who you trust, and have conversations with other people about how they've overcome it, because we're surrounded by people
right
overcome probably the same things, which is one of the things I love about BNI because it's so collaborative. You can ask, the theme I spoke in Poland was BNI grew up a businesswoman. I went from a stay-at-home mom who knew nothing really other than just working a job, but my chapter grew me up.
Wow.
Even the Mary Kay lady taught me how to dress and put on makeup and the right way to present myself, and the bookkeepers, and they grew me up. And having a group of people that will help grow you up is phenomenal.
I mean, that's a hell of a way to look at that. And there is so much, there are, all of the different core values, right, of BNI. And one of them is like lifelong learning. And I love that. And nobody ever really picks that. Everyone says, relationships, and yes, it's great to have relationships, but the lifelong learning piece, and admittedly, I probably need to take a little bit more advantage of that. But we're always works in progress, and we're always growing. And when we stop growing is when we need to like take a look and be like, okay, wait a minute, because you need to always be learning and gleaning lessons and information, and
not about your business, about your life.
That's what I mean.
About who you want to be. And if you like, I'm reading a book right now called I Didn't Do the Things Today. And it's about how society programs us to do, even you feel guilty about not doing all the time. And I'm at 68 years old in November. I'm like, I don't want to be doing all the time. I want to be more. And this talks about let yourself off the hook. You don't have to do all the things every day.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's like give yourself grace, right? Like that's one of the things that I always tell people. I've been telling people lately, because I have so many people that just beat themselves up. They're like, oh, I didn't do this. And I'm like, and I did a post on LinkedIn. or it's coming out this week. Treat yourself the way you would treat your best friend, because we don't. We're like, oh my God, I screwed that up. I suck. I'm like the worst person in the world. But if your friend screwed up, you'd be like, hey, it's okay. We all make mistakes, right? But when it comes to us, we're like, schmuck, what's wrong with you? Like, why didn't you, and I've personally learned to give myself so much more grace now, because for the longest time, it would be like, oh my God, how could I do that? Like, how could I forget that? How could I, whatever? And now I'm like, I mean, at the end of the day, shit happens to everybody. No one's perfect. So, and I've been speaking a lot kinder to myself. I look at myself in the morning, every morning now, and I'm like, okay, kiddo, let's go. Let's do this. And I do the rah rah. I look at my website and I'm so proud of what I've built. I look in the mirror and I see somebody that I love and that I respect and that I know is a badass, kick-ass chick, right? So, but it took a long time to get there.
It does.
It took a really long time to get there. And, but it's the best feeling in the world.
Right. For me, it's just been the opposite, was giving up the guilt about I didn't wash the dishes before I went to bed. Okay.
Throw it in the dishwasher. Who cares?
Just get it done. I'll do it.
So you wanted a dishwasher for a reason.
Right. So you have to forgive yourself for all those little things, the little things that pile up on you, especially as a woman. It's just what we've been taught, right? To balance everything. And oh, by the way, I also gave up the whole concept of balance, because I decided that balance is a way to make women feel guilty. I could never have family and business in balance, but I can have harmony.
Yep. Yes. And
harmony.
Who the hell just said that? I just read that somewhere. Actually, it's one of my, Catherine Morales is a really good friend of mine. She's in PR and everything. And that's one of the things, is it's about harmony. It's not about balance, because you can't.
Nothing's in balance. Have you noticed Mother Nature lately? She's out of her mind.
She ain't balanced. She is not balanced. That's for damn sure. But yeah. And it's like society puts all this crap on women. And I don't know. I personally, I'm done with it. I'm like, screw the patriarchy. We need a matriarchy, because it's not working, right? We need something new. But I'm not going to get into all that. That'll be a whole nother conversation that, we'll have. But I think that, at the end of the day, there's like a lot of people listening. My whole thing with BNI is that it brings, when the chapter is right, it brings the right core group of people together, right? And then when you have that core, so when we started this chapter, we had an amazing core group. And when we brought people in, it wasn't about quantity, it was about quality. It was about who's going to fit with everybody, or who's going to make us better. Right. And that's how we've been running it. And and I love it. But there are other networking groups out there. So what makes BNI different?
Well, BNI has been around since 1985, so we've been around a long time, right? It's not something that we're just trying out.
Right.
We've been around a long time. But we've got our core values, that everybody lives the core values. We've got our code of ethics, and violation of our code of ethics is a reason to lose your membership.
Right.
We've got 11 policies that we hold everybody accountable to, which includes attendance, showing up on time, staying for the meeting, being there, being present. And then we track, unlike most other organizations, we actually have a massive tracking system.
Yeah.
And we know last year, BNI Indiana did $123 million worth of business. Mm-hmm. And last time I looked, we were at 98 million for this year, right? And so we track the referrals that are going in, the referrals that are going out, and members report how much revenue their organization brought in as a result of a referral. And we track that.
Right.
And that's not like anything anyone else does. As a matter of fact, other organizations will say, oh, we're similar to BNI, but we're not as tough. We don't have all those rules.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Accountability and policies, having things in place, that structure is
Yep.
what creates success. What you track gets done, right? What you track gets done. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of friends, and I don't have to spend money to make friends.
Exactly.
Right? I'm there to collaborate with fellow business people who have a like mindset as mine. That's what I love, is that similar mindset.
Right.
Your chapter, just so you know, you guys launched, that's the fastest I've ever had a chapter launch from beginning to end. And it launched in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Because Amy came to me and said, well, I'm doing it in 8 weeks or I'm not doing it. I'm like, okay. And
Yeah.
she got it done. And
well, because she's Jamie.
'cause
8 weeks. Let's go, people. Come on, let's go. It was like,
she is Jamie.
who's going to get in? But in that 8-week period, right? It was like, and that's what I loved about it. Because, you know, she approached me and I was like, no. And she was like, Hazel and I really think this is going to be amazing. And I was like, I got to talk to Heather. And then Heather was like, no. And and after we all met for like, I think the second time, I said, I really think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be great. And so she was like, your funeral. Right. And she's been like, okay, because we've been rocking and rolling. I mean, we've been having a great time. You know, Jamie, you know, well, I don't know how to tell this without okay. So when we first started getting together, we would go out and we'd hang out, we'd have a few drinks or whatever. And I'm not a drinker, right? I'm really not. Well, I woke up that morning and and I had the symptoms from my COVID thing that my doctor's like, if you have those symptoms, call. So I call Heather and I said, yeah, I'm having these symptoms. I called, they said I need to come in to get checked. So she's like, well, should I take the day off? And I said, no. I said, I'll call you. I said, because if I get admitted, I'm going to call you. If I don't get admitted, I'm getting drunk. So she said, yeah, okay, whatever. Because I do that all the time. Oh my God, I'm going to like drink so much. Well, I ended up drinking my ass off. Like I haven't drank that much probably in like 40 years. I think I had like a Flirtini, 4 shots of Patron. I was done. And Jamie waited with me. Like I called Heather up and I was like, hi. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, I can't drive. I'm like, you have to come get me. And I'm like, I'm like saying this on like national, whatever, but I don't care. Actually international. But look, shit happens. We do stuff sometimes, right? And Jamie waited with me until Heather got there. Like she made sure I had water. She was like, eat, you need to eat. You need to drink water. She like really took care of me. And it just, for me, just put her on this whole other level of we're doing this thing together to, wow, you're a really good friend.
We're going to build this thing together.
We're going to build this thing together. And I also knew that I will do anything for her now because she took care of me when I was freaking vulnerable. Like I have no idea what was going on, you know. Then of course Heather got there and I got home and then the next day I paid for it. But the point is that
40 years before you do it again.
No, that's never happening again. That was just, I was scared. Like I didn't know if this thing was going to start again or what. And so I was just like so stressed about worrying about it that I was like, I'm done. But anyway, but the fact that she waited there, it was like, we're in this together. And it was so huge that, Heather saw it and she got there and she's like, I'll take her home now, and she thanked Jamie. Thank you so much for taking care of her. And Jamie was like, of course, like it wasn't even a second thought. And that's what you do, right? That's what you do when you have that camaraderie, when you have, And so we built the chapter. It was like, okay, we're doing this. 8 weeks later, we were, like Donkey Kong, it was on and we were done. So, so first off, what are your next steps? Like, do you want people to connect with you? Do you like, what's your next move here?
Yeah, well, people ask me all the time, when am I going to retire? And I know that's what I do. I laugh. I go, what would that actually look like? Like, how would that look different than what I do currently? Because I don't work too hard. I mean, owning the franchises here gives me a good excuse to be down on the ocean a little later, or to be over in the mountains or kayaking and stuff, right? It gives me, I have a place and then I can go play.
Right.
I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next, to be honest. We do talk, probably in the next 5 years, I'll sell the franchise. I know I will sell at Central Indiana at some point.
Mhm.
I would like to sell that off and spend maybe more time writing and traveling. But I can't really tell you what I'm going to do, because I can't imagine not doing what I do.
So how do people connect with you? How do they find you?
Oh, you can find me. All you really have to do is Google Hazel Walker, and
that's true.
you can just find me. You'll find walkers this way over on YouTube. People will say to me, "I see you everywhere." No, you just see me on the internet a lot.
Right.
I'm really not everywhere. This here. But you can go to hazelwalker.com, because I got a bunch of stuff I need to be sending over to start getting that updated. I really need to rework it. But LinkedIn, you can find me there. You can always find me on Facebook, because that's how my kids track where I am in the world. If I don't post on something regularly, they start to get concerned.
Right.
They play a game called Where in the World is Hazel Walker?
Yeah.
Right. So they make up stories. And that's an easy place to get home. Or you can just email hazel@bni.com.
Which is the simplest. Yeah, absolutely.
So email.
Any parting words, thoughts, advice, anything?
I think with the way society is changing, being an entrepreneur is your best bet. As much as I heard that thing yesterday about the fair, I also heard anything that you give to mankind, mankind will find a way to profit from it or use it to control. And so if you are tired of that whole corporate gig, there's other things. The economy is going south, but there are fortunes to be made in every economy.
Everywhere. Yep.
Everywhere there's a way to make a fortune. Don't let fear stop you from a good idea. Find someone who will encourage you and build you up and help you see that good idea come true. Because I think the way of the corporate gig all the time, day in and day out, is not working as well as it used to.
Yeah. And I think that, on the converse, it's like, what we said earlier. I think the thing that was the impetus for me in the very beginning was I was working for this company, and long story, but it was like, I'm out here making sales for you, making you a shit ton of money, and you're giving me like nothing. Why am I doing that when I could be doing it for myself? So
yeah, and if you and some people love the corporate gig, and that's great, because we do need that. But when I look at waiters and waitresses and people that work in that kind of environment, and they get paid that $2.50 an hour, and then depend on their hour tips, I think you guys work hard. You work hard, and you're really smart. You might want to consider doing your own thing.
Right.
Think about your own thing and how you can move towards that, and don't let everybody around you stop you.
Yeah.
There's opportunities everywhere, and I have franchises for sale, so call me. There
you go. hazelwalker.com or hazel@bni.com. Soon to be sold. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat
my pleasure. I love it.
With me and the audience. I love this. Did we ever think that we'd be doing this? Yeah, this is like so awesome. And that's another thing, like with this podcast, it's like taking a life on of its own. And I'm super proud of it, and I love it. And I love my guests. I, try to get really dynamic people on. I had somebody last week go, "Oh, you have a podcast. Can I be on?" And it was like, let's talk. Let me find out who the hell you are before. No. Yeah, I just really appreciate you taking out the time. And I know that the audience has gleaned a lot of really good info. So thank you. And then The last question that I ask all my guests is, what lights your fire?
Really, travel lights my fire. It used to, but travel's not fun with the airlines anymore. And truly, what really lights my fire is when I'm educating people that are brand new to the whole concept of networking and working in your network. Like I've got 3 new chapters that I'm training right now.
Mm-hmm.
To watch it all come together for them and for them to be getting it and immediately get excited and start passing business and supporting one another. That lights my fire. I love that. I love awesome. Training them and watching the lights come on for people.
That's awesome. That's great. And, you know, it was funny when I was doing the training, the communication coordinator training, my first group was amazing. I have to send that to Mark. I just said so many times. I was watching the recording. I was like, I was like, oh my God. But I'm going to send it to him anyway. But it was so interesting watching the one group as opposed to the other group.
Yeah.
And the one group was like into it and they were excited and they were, you know, and I had to like pull it out of them. I'm like, all right, guys, you know, come on. The second group, it didn't matter what I did. I was like, okay, you know.
And I see that every day, all the time. It's just inspiring when they're excited.
Yes. And then that excites you, right? That gets you going. So I love what you've done, you know, and I thank you for what you've done because it's helped me grow as a business person. You've helped, God, at this point, tens of thousands of people, you know, grow. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to say goodbye to the audience and I'll be right back. I want to thank all of you for hanging in again for an hour plus. You get to meet some of my favorite people. Hazel is definitely one of my favorite people. And, you know, I hope that you've gleaned some really good info. Like, share, subscribe. When you subscribe, you get notification of a new episode. And, you know, leave a message, leave some comments on what you thought about the episode and what you've gotten from it. We always love to hear that. And yeah, just keep watching. Appreciate all of you. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.